You can only fail at this moment by not being present to this moment. That's the real failure, no other failure. So, and then suddenly your sense of identity shifts from this construct in the head that you call me and my past to the alive presence. Even the me and my past construct in your head could not exist without the consciousness that gave it form. So you go deeper and realize this is who I am, and it's not a conceptual sense of self anymore, because everything else is conceptual. Every story you tell yourself in your head is conceptual. Ideas about who I am, concepts, in other words, thoughts. So deriving your sense of self from that is very limiting. This is why there's the old meditation method by Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta also. Somebody asked the question here. The meditation is, who am I? Somebody asks, who am I? This contemplation method seems to be goal-oriented and very appealing, but the spiritual consensus seems to be that enlightenment cannot be made into a goal. I can't tell if these meditations will do what is promised. Please comment. This person thinks that when I say, who am I, the meditation becomes a goal. No, it's not, because you're not asking, who am I going to be when I'm enlightened? That would be a goal. But asking, who am I, is not a goal. It takes you more deeply into the present. It takes you into the present. It eliminates past and future. Who am I? Don't answer the question. That's the essential thing. Any answer to who am I, you failed. You failed miserably. No, not miserably. Just, you didn't. It just means you didn't get it. That's okay. Who am I? And those words are the pointers. What comes after the pointers is an alert presence in which you do not know who you are, because there's no longer any concepts, and you can't really say, you know, at least not conceptually, you don't know. You have to have the courage to not know. Not only the courage to not know who you are, also the courage not to interpret other people or situations. You don't need to formulate immediately judgments and concepts about everything around you. Let it be. Because the moment you start formulating, the clash begins between reality and your mind. Because the concepts say this shouldn't be how it is. And so this person, the word should comes very often. When you operate through concepts, you can see how frequently the word should comes in. I should have. I should, he should have, he shouldn't have. I should not have. This is a continuous conflict between the mental expectations and reality. So this is when you live through concepts. So that goes away, and you have the courage to not know who you are. Who am I? And then use, even saying, I don't know, you've gone too far already. Because even that's not totally true. It is true that you do not know conceptually who you are by being able to give some kinds of conceptual answer, but the miracle is there is another way of knowing, another dimension in humans that is non-conceptual. And that arises when you're no longer totally trapped in concepts, mental concepts. It's only from the point of view of mental concepts that it appears that you have become completely ignorant when you not judge anymore compulsively. But there is a deeper knowing that cannot be put into words. It is direct knowing. There are analogies. There's a traditional analogy from the East. The difference between talking about honey and tasting honey. You know that you can know the honey by writing a PhD about honey without ever having tasted it. And you can know everything about honey, but have never tasted it. And then you can taste the honey without knowing anything conceptually about it. This is an analogy. It's not quite the same, but just so there's a direct knowing and there's a knowing about. Now, all conceptual knowledge is knowing about. It's not knowing. So most people's sense of self or identity is they know things about themselves. And the things they know about themselves is what they have been told by others. That's how it starts. What your parents tell you about you, what your surroundings tell you about you, what your culture tells you about you, where you fit in your particular culture, what the world tells you who you are, and you take it on board, and then it becomes what you tell yourself about who you are. And it's always, knowing about, but not knowing, not the true knowing. That's where the ancient word gnosis comes from, Gnosis. That's to truly to know, and this is dreadfully neglected in our ignorant civilization. The deeper level of knowing, they don't even know it exists. And this is why they cannot experience anything deeply. You can go into the forest or anywhere in nature, and you can walk in the forest and talk about the stock market with your friends, and occasionally you glimpse at the trees. Oh, that's a nice tree. Now, what about those shares? And then that's a nice flower. He tells me I should sell Apple shares. Or you can go through, there you're not there at all. Or you can go through a forest knowing a lot about the forest, which is fine, and say, oh, that's a such and such a bird, that's such and such a tree, and that's how it grows, and that's that. Isn't that lovely? I wonder if I can find this kind of fern that I've been, oh yes, there it is. And you can know a lot, and you can label what you see, names for trees and birds and animals and plants and flowers, and miss the knowing. You know a lot about the forest, but do you know the forest? Now, to know the forest, your mind has to become still. And you have to be the presence that experiences everything in the forest. And you become the presence from the point of view of conceptual knowledge. You don't know anything suddenly anymore. You're just taking it all in. And what you take in brings in there's a deeper dimension suddenly that you were not aware of at all when all you knew was knowing about the forest. And suddenly you experience a depth that is in the forest and in you. Simultaneously, they go together. A depth opens up, and you can sense that the forest is an alive energy field. The forest itself is a presence, and you can sense the inherent aliveness that pervades the entire forest. And then you go, oh, and you go very alert, and you look and listen, every sound, every little thing, and even a little leaf quivering, the slight breeze, and everything is. And what then arises in traditional spiritual terminology is called sacredness. There you go. And you walk carefully. And that is inaccessible to you if all you have is conceptual knowledge about the forest. You have to go into the deeper knowing. The same applies to knowing another human being.